The success of your presentation will be judged, not by the knowledge you send, but by what the listener receives. This quote by Lily Walters, I think, conveys nicely one of my greatest lessons learned from this course. Prior to taking this course, public speaking was something I was relatively comfortable with. I had done theater all of my life. I did speech and debate in high school, and then at a prior college, I was a communication major. So being comfortable in front of talking to people was something that I already had a skill set for. But what I did realize I needed to work on, and this class helped me significantly with, was captivating my audience and having a clear purpose to my speaking. And the biggest way that I learned to help myself in doing these was through proper preparation before I even got to the public speaking. Prior, I had been a very kind of wing it person, meaning I didn't necessarily take a lot of time to prepare for what I was going to be saying in front of people. I just got up there and I did something off the cuff. But I realized through this course that in doing that, you aren't presenting yourself as a credible speaker and oftentimes aren't speaking with a clear intent purpose. And this is conveyed nicely in Learning Objective 7.2, which states, quote, write an audience-centered specific purpose statement for each speech. And this quote really helped me kind of jump off in my preparation. I did a lot of reading about what purpose statements were and how they were able to help. And so then I would come up with that first thing. And then as I was writing the rest of my speech, I would constantly be referring back to that purpose statement because that's how I can make sure that everything that I was adding was tying in well and was really getting across to my audience what I wanted it to. So I worked on this throughout the semester, and Melissa actually, in a critique of my persuasive speech, said, quote, professional attire and clear proposition, not to mention command of the room, made you credible and compelled your audience to listen. You were confident and authentic. And I think a lot of this just came through, again, really good preparation, paying attention to that purpose statement and always trying to come back to it and tie it in. I think that establishes your credibility better, and it definitely built my confidence, which made it even easier with the audience. So another big part of what we learned about in this course was visual presentation aids. And throughout this course, I definitely began to understand better what I preferred and what I didn't prefer in means of visual aids. So I think one big thing is finding a good balance between text and graphics. I noticed for me personally as a listener that if I was watching a visual presentation that had all text and no graphics, it wasn't very engaging to me. I oftentimes didn't want to take the time to read it all, and would just kind of skim through it. Likewise, I found that visuals that were all pictures and had no text for me were kind of unmemorable because I didn't necessarily link the picture with anything. So I think having both is really good because if you can have a visual to go along with a text, it gives the brain more ways to remember things. I also think visuals are really good when you're working with like statistics and information. And in my informative speech, I included a diagram about diaper rash, and it showed the audience the different stages of diaper rash and gave them a visual as well as me talking through them. And I think this provided like an easier way for them to understand it and know if it was occurring, and if so, what phase it was at. And so this was one way I learned to use visual aids to help the audience understand a point you're trying to make better. One of my favorite things about this class was the audience-centered approach that both the course and the textbook took. I found this approach to be very effective and beneficial. It was something that I had never really taken into consideration before. Because I think oftentimes as a student, you can get so caught up in, do I have all the information that the professor is requiring? Am I within the time, the allotted time? to get the grade that I want. I think sometimes you get so caught up in those that you forget that you're actually presenting this to an audience and trying to convey something to them. And I think as the semester went on, this was something I got better at. In my peer critique over my persuasive speech, my peer said, quote, "By analyzing her audience, she was able to make her speech easy to understand and connect to listeners." So here I think this is just a good example of how I was checking in with my audience. This really came across in my persuasive speech. So this was a speech that I was very, very passionate about my topic, and I had a ton of information I was trying to cram into a rather small amount of time. And I found while I was giving that speech that I had a decision to make. My allotted time was almost out, but I still had information that I wanted to give. And in that moment, I kind of looked at my audience to see if they were still engaged, if they seemed to be enjoying or learning from what I was sharing. And from doing that, it seemed like everyone was rather well engaged. And so I decided in that moment to go ahead and present the rest of my information, even though it did mean that I was going to go over my required time for the presentation. And afterwards, I was actually very happy that I made this decision, and it's still a decision I stand by today. Because for me, taking that extra time and conveying the rest of my message to the audience, it was important information. They learned something, and hopefully they were persuaded by it. And I think oftentimes that is more important, and actually conveying something and having something the audience can take away, rather than, okay, did I, fit in the time box? And so taking the audience-centered approach was really beneficial for me and made public speaking much more rewarding. So another big part of what we talked about this semester was being a good listener, which I think at times is something that I struggle with. One of the main concepts that I tried to focus on was being a mindful listener, which our textbook defined as being someone who is mentally focused on the listening task. And this both means internally and externally. There's so many distractions today. Externally, there's noises, there's phones, there's all sorts of things going off. And then internally, sometimes it's just hard when you have a task list of 20 things to get done that day to truly engage and listen to what's in front of you. And so I worked really hard at kind of pushing those things out and focusing on what I was able to. And when I did, I was able to find that I took a lot more away from my experience, and was just much more engaged, and it created more of kind of a symbiotic relationship with the presenter and myself. And so this is something now that I've actually taken and started applying in my field. I'm studying social work here at school. And so when working with clients, I've been trying to do the same thing and really kind of focus on what they're presenting me, and what we're trying to accomplish that day. And I think with my clients, it's been really beneficial because they feel like I'm actually hearing them out and trying to help them then. They're getting my focus. So finally, the last thing that we had to focus on in this semester was working and collaborating with others. I had two very different experiences with this. My special occasion speech was a lot of fun. It was a lot of positive, creative collaboration. And I think oftentimes creativity comes with working with others. So I really liked that was a collaborative experience. Whereas in my other experience with the elevator pitch, me and my partner had to learn how to be flexible and just kind of make things work because one of our members was unable to be there at the time that we agreed upon. So in the moment, we just kind of had to make something work. And that was an important teaching moment for me to realize when you are a member how important it is for you to step up because other people are relying on you. So I think overall collaboration can be something really good. It's something that social workers, again, are constantly doing. And so to be able to refine those skills more in this class was beneficial for me. So just overall throughout this course, I learned many new skills that I know I'll be able to continue to utilize throughout my career as a social worker, and overall has helped me build my confidence. I take a very different approach to public speaking as a result of this class. And again, to reference back to the quote I said earlier, I think Lily Walters really summarized it best. by saying that the importance of our success in public speaking will be judged by what the listener receives rather than what is sent. And again, this just kind of comes back to that audience-centered approach that I found really beneficial, both I think as a listener and as a presenter. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed this course. And I hope you have a great day.